Have you ever heard a song you hadn't heard in years? And suddenly, everything came back. Not just the memory, the feeling, the sadness, the anxiety, the loneliness. For a few seconds, it felt as if you had been transported into a different time, a different relationship, a different version of yourself. The strange thing is that nothing around you changed, the song changed nothing, yet your body reacted as if something important had just happened. Why? Why can a sound, a smell, a place, or even a single sentence pull you back into emotions you thought were long gone? Why do some experiences fade away, while others seem determined to follow us for decades? The answer reveals something most people never learn about trauma. Trauma is not simply a painful memory. Trauma is a memory that the brain never fully recognized as being over. Many people imagine the brain as a storage device. Something happens, it gets recorded, and eventually it gets filed away into the past. Most experiences work exactly like that. You remember your first day at a job, you remember a vacation, you remember a conversation. The memory exists, but it stays where it belongs, in the past. Trauma behaves differently. Traumatic experiences often remain connected to the brain's threat detection systems. Instead of becoming something that happened, they remain something that could happen again. That's why trauma can feel so confusing. Logically, you know the event is over. Emotionally, part of your brain isn't convinced. Imagine a person who spent years with a highly critical parent. As a child, every mistake was met with anger, disappointment, or humiliation. Years later, they're sitting in a meeting at work. Their manager offers simple feedback, nothing hostile, nothing aggressive, yet their heart rate rises, their stomach tightens, their mind starts racing. The reaction seems irrational, until you realize the brain isn't reacting only to the manager, it's reacting to years of emotional learning. The brain recognizes a familiar pattern and prepares for danger before conscious thought even has a chance to intervene. This happens because the human brain is constantly trying to predict what comes next. Every experience teaches the brain something. Every success, every rejection, every betrayal, every moment of safety. The brain collects information and uses it to build expectations about the future. Most of the time, this system is incredibly useful. If you touch a hot stove, you learn not to touch it again. If a road is dangerous, you become more cautious. The problem is that trauma can make the prediction system overly sensitive. The brain starts finding threats everywhere, not because it's malfunctioning, because it's trying to protect you. A person who experienced abandonment may become extremely sensitive to distance in relationships. A delayed text message suddenly feels significant. A cancelled plan feels personal. A brief emotional withdrawal from a partner feels catastrophic. The current situation may be small. The emotional response is often connected to something much older. This is one reason trauma frequently appears inside relationships. Relationships create emotional closeness, and emotional closeness tends to activate old emotional wounds. People often say things like, "I don't know why I reacted that way." What they usually mean is that their present reaction doesn't match the present situation. What they're missing is that the reaction often belongs to a different chapter of their life. The event happening now is only touching a much older injury. Researchers have discovered that traumatic memories are processed differently from ordinary memories. Under extreme stress, the brain prioritizes survival over organization. Instead of neatly storing an experience as a coherent narrative, fragments of the event can remain disconnected. A sound, a smell, a facial expression, a tone of voice. Years later, those fragments can trigger the same emotional response that originally accompanied them. This explains why trauma triggers often seem random. Someone hears a song, someone visits a city, someone smells a certain perfume, someone watches a scene in a movie, and suddenly emotions emerge that seem completely unrelated to the present moment. The trigger itself is not the problem. The trigger is acting like a key. It's opening a door that was never fully closed. Many people misunderstand trauma because they think it's always connected to dramatic events. Sometimes it is, war, violence, serious accidents, natural disasters. But psychology has shown that trauma can also emerge from experiences that are less visible: chronic rejection, emotional neglect, constant criticism, unpredictable caregiving, growing up in an environment where safety never felt guaranteed. The human nervous system does not measure experiences by how dramatic they appear to outsiders. It responds to how threatening, overwhelming, or inescapable they feel. Two people can experience similar situations and walk away with very different outcomes. What matters is not only the event, it's the meaning the brain attaches to the event. One of the most overlooked consequences of trauma is hypervigilance. This is when the brain becomes excessively focused on detecting danger. Many people think they are simply overthinkers. In reality, they may be dealing with a nervous system that learned to stay on guard. They analyze messages, monitor people's moods, replay conversations, search for hidden meanings, prepare for worst-case scenarios. From the outside, it looks exhausting. From the brain's perspective, it feels necessary. The brain believes vigilance prevents future pain. Unfortunately, the constant search for danger often creates more suffering than the danger itself. Trauma can also move in the opposite direction. Instead of becoming hyper-alert, some people become emotionally numb. They disconnect from their feelings. They struggle to trust. They avoid vulnerability. They keep others at a distance. This is not because they don't care. Often it's because caring once felt unsafe. The nervous system learned that emotional closeness came with emotional pain, so it built walls. Those walls may reduce immediate discomfort, but they can also block intimacy, connection, and healing. Perhaps the most surprising thing about trauma is that it doesn't always live in memory. It often lives in expectation. People assume trauma is about remembering the past. Much of the time, trauma is actually about anticipating the future. The brain keeps asking the same question: what if it happens again? What if I'm rejected again? What if I'm betrayed again? What if I lose everything again? The event may be over. The anticipation remains active. That's why healing isn't about forgetting. The brain cannot simply delete experiences. Healing happens when the nervous system gradually learns that the threat no longer exists. The memory remains, but the alarm becomes quieter. The trigger loses its power. The body stops reacting as if the past is happening right now. This process takes time because trauma is not stored as information alone. It's stored through emotions, bodily sensations, habits, beliefs, and patterns of survival. The brain doesn't abandon survival strategies overnight. It slowly updates them through new experiences of safety. And perhaps that's the biggest misunderstanding of all. Trauma is not proof that someone is weak. It's proof that the human brain is adaptable. The same system that creates trauma responses was originally trying to protect us. The problem is that sometimes the brain learns a lesson so well that it keeps applying it long after the danger has disappeared. So the next time a song unexpectedly changes your mood, or a small moment triggers an emotional reaction that feels larger than it should, remember this. You may not be reliving the past because you're unable to move on. You may be experiencing a survival system that never received the message that the emergency ended. And once you understand that, trauma stops looking like a personal flaw. It starts looking like what it really is: a mind that worked incredibly hard to protect itself and is still learning the difference between a memory and a threat.